Very,
What was the big takeaway from training with Truck?
man, he knew I would say I was lazy. I was lazy, and he would. The good thing about it is, he knew how to get me to work.
What was the back from the gym? What was the atmosphere like when you guys trained?
Intense. One thing that I've never experienced since that time is,
how many times did you get kicked out?
oh my God, at least 3.
Welcome to the Westside Barbell Podcast. Today's guest is Jerry O. Jerry, appreciate you coming in. Took us a minute to get you here. So we'd like to start straight away at the beginning. And how did you ever end up at Westside Barbell?
How did I ever end up at Westside? I was in high school. First time I ever heard about powerlifting, a guy I was training at a gym on Henderson Road called Master Chase 1-on-1. And this guy, one of the guys who worked there, he said, "Man, you gotta meet my friend, man. I keep telling him about you. I keep telling him about this strong kid." And he's like, "Man, he doesn't believe me. He doesn't believe that, that you're doing the things you're doing." And the guy it was Arnold Coleman. And
Okay.
Arnold was the first person to kind of coached me and introduced me to powerlifting. So I'll never forget, I was a senior in high school, and I ended up cutting my 9th period's social studies class to go meet Arnold, and he asked me to bench. I think I laid down, I think I did like 225 for like 23 reps, and he was like, "Wow." And he started coaching me, and he told me to go to my first power league, but told me there was a power lift of me coming up, and I didn't know anything about it. And I showed up. It was the Police Athletic League. It was, and that's the first time I saw Louie and Tom and George Halbert. They're all Matt lifted there. I think that day he had posted the biggest bench at Westside. It was 575, and I think he tried a reverse grip that day, if I'm not mistaken. And I know Mickey, who ended up becoming a great friend and training partner of mine, he benched 540, which was one of the biggest benches at the gym. So we're going back to 1992. So 575 and 540 were did that day. And I want to say I got my first glimpse of powerlifting, and I'm like, wow, it was definitely it was different, something I've never experienced. They were slapping each other. And, I remember Mickey had put chalk all over his face, and I'm like, Tom's over there smacking the crap out of people, and just I don't know, man. I was kind of drawn to it. I was kind of hooked. Like, man, this is something I can see myself doing down the road. So a few months later, I had started training with I was working in high school. I worked at Long John Silver's, which was on Bethel Road, and little did I know that Matt Dimmel. Later on, I found out it was Matt. He would come in there on Sundays. He would come. He was from up Arlington, and he'd come in with his little girl and his girlfriend. And I had no idea who he was. And I'd been at a gym. I was training at a World's Gym, and I remember seeing his picture and seeing 1,010 squat, and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And I ended up, I'll never forget, he came in that Sunday, and I go, "You're Matt Dimmel." And I remember his face lit up. He was like bright purple, man. And I ended up talking to him and telling him that I wanted to start powerlifting, and he kind of blew me off a little. I'm sure, all the time people come up and say this and that. And maybe about a few months later, then I ended up, I was at Columbus State, and I came down. I just started Columbus State, just graduated, and went down to meet Louie. I went to Westside Barbell, and I'll never forget walking in, and it was Louie and Jimmy Ritchie, and Louie had on these bright red sunglasses, And, I told him, here I am, this chubby teenage kid, I'm telling Louis how strong I am. And Louis told me to go ahead and walk around. And towards the end, he goes, well, he told me to come back and see him when I got stronger. So I started training with a couple of guys at a gym called Power Shack. It was out in Hilliard. And one of the guys that I had met, he went to high school and he was good friends with Matt. His name was Kelly Keary. And another thing, man, I just kind of was trying to, telling people, hey, man, I told this guy, I was like, yeah, I'm doing these lifts. And he invited me to the gym, and he's like, man, you definitely got some serious potential. And he would tell me a lot of stories about Matt, kind of became very intrigued.
What lifts were you hitting? Like, how much weight were you lifting back then?
I think in high school, my senior year, I was probably about 185, 190, and I could do 315 for 8. I think I had about a 375, 385 raw bench.
Yeah.
Think went really into squatting or deadlifting, but man, right off the bat. So I trained with these guys, and my first meet, I pulled 600 and benched 420 raw. And then Louis, I'll never forget Louis in the back, man, he had his little gentleman's cap. He said, come down and see us. And I don't know, I kind of had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder, like, man, kind of blew me off. I was telling him how strong I was. And I was reading, I saw in this little paper in Upper Arlington, I was reading that Matt, I read his whole story, his comeback, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. And he had just opened a gym. And once again, man, I was at Columbus State. I ended up leaving class early, and I walked in, and there was Matt, this great big, looked like a big grizzly bear, man. He's freaking passed out on the he's like sitting up like this, passed out. And I'm like, what the hell do I wake him up or this? And he remembered me from CompuServe, and he said, man, Louis, he said, hey, Louis was really impressed with you, man. And that's a real compliment. And I don't know anything. I don't know about. And he invited me to come back and train in the afternoon. He said, he introduced me to Tom Waddle and Doug Klein. That would be the first two guys that I trained with at M&M's right there on Demarest. Matt had opened a little gym. And, I'd heard about Tom. I'll never forget the first thing he did. He walks up. I was training at World's Gym, and I'd seen him a few times when I was in there. I'd seen him with the, remember the first time I saw Tom, he was in there like, I think he had like a 700-800 pounds on the squat bar, and he was in there freaking just. I never saw that. Saw the intensity, man. I was like, this is pretty cool. And next thing you know, I heard about Tom had knocked a cop out at the gym. They got into it, and then I heard he beat some other guy up, and I'm like, wow, man. And next thing you know, man, he's walking in the gym and introduced himself to me, and our friendship formed from there. Very, very, very blessed, very lucky that I was able to walk into that situation.
Yeah.
Have him and Matt at the time to coach me, and I was happy. I felt like, man, this was going to work for me. So about a week into it, Louis shows up, and I'll never forget, he showed up as a Isuzu Trooper with this great big dog. Just remember the movie, I think of the movie Cujo. He's like, told me to get in the truck. And I'm like, he said, no, you're fine as long as I'm with you. I'm like, okay. And he drove me down to West Side, was over on Whitethorn. And I'll never forget, he had me deadlift against Mark Camboni and Tim Little. And I think I kicked both their asses, and they went around the room, did the thumbs up. He said, you're in. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm in? And he's like, well, you're in West Side. And I was a little, not that I wasn't, I really wanted to train with Matt. I really was, really wanted to be under his guidance, and really liked Tom. And I just kind of felt like that's where I kind of wanted to be at the time. And of course, that offended Louis. He was pissed, but I went to my first meet, and I think I broke every teenage record there was in Ohio. And then soon after that, I went to Buffalo, New York, and broke all the teenage world records. And then shortly after that, Matt had passed away, and me and Louis, Louis had showed up to the gym over at Matt's, and he said, I know you don't want to listen to me. I know you don't want to train, but he goes, I just want to show you a couple of things. I guarantee you'll bench. I was really close to benching 600 as a teenager, like so close. And I'll tell you what, man, he took me and Tom over to Whitethorn and had us doing a few exercises he showed us, and my bench shot straight up to 600, man. And I all of a sudden was leading the pack, as a teenager. And kind of from then we kind of that's where our friendship started, man. And losing Matt was a rough time for me.
Yeah.
I had just graduated from high school. My best friend I grew up, he murdered his neighbor. So all during this time, so here he goes to prison for murder. They got into a dispute about noise and led to him stabbing the guy to death. And then Matt passes away, and then me and Tom, I was glad I had Tom to kind of follow, and have him to guide me, and and things just kind of unraveled from there.
How old were you then? What age were you about?
Probably around, I was 18 to 19, 18 going on 19.
So you and Tom go from M&M's into Westside together.
So Louis ended up, the gym went from Whitethorn over to Demarest, the little Demarest right there. And it was just me and Tom. I remember we were training about 1 o'clock because of his work schedule and whatnot. And at the time I was just in school, and Louis shows up one day with Chuck. And I'd met Chuck a few times. I know he was going through, he had the neck injury or whatnot. And at that time he was like, he was 185 pounds. He was just wasn't, 100% at the time. So we all started squatting together, training together. So that's when I got my introduction to Chuck Vogelpohl. And it was cool. I'm glad. It was a great experience for me, man.
What was the big takeaway from training with Chuck?
Man, he knew I would say I was lazy. I was lazy, and he would. The good thing about it is, he knew how to get me to work, but he was always nagging at me. It was almost like just constant poking at each other and this and that. But it was cool. Like I said, he very glad that I was in that situation once again.
And did you guys move from 1 o'clock to the morning crew or the evening crew, or were you just always?
It was me, him, and Chuck, and that's kind of how it was because of Tom's schedule. Tom wasn't able to train in the mornings, and so kind of that was the 1 o'clock crew. We were doing our thing, man. We were making, I guess kind of putting Westside on the map at that time. With the numbers we were doing.
Did you have any inter-club rivalry between the morning? Was there people that you wanted to beat that wanted to beat you, that were pushing you back and forth? Or
I think naturally, even with our training, I always wanted to beat Chuck. I always wanted to. I wanted to beat Tom. I think that's just kind of how the mentality is. That was the one thing I think. I think we all had. I think that's what made us great. And we pushed. We all wanted to. I sure as hell wanted. I wanted to walk out of there victor every day. Every workout. I didn't want to. So I didn't really ever feel a rivalry with anybody. Other than just my training partners. Just wanted to be the first one. Be first.
How fun was it to go to meets? as a part of Westside?
Oh wow, I dreaded going to meets. They're still to this day. I'll tell you, back in the day though, one thing I really did like, I liked competing at the APF Senior Nationals.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was a lot of fun, man. Getting to compete and see people from all over the country. I thought that was very exciting, and I always looked forward to that. I didn't really get into doing the local meets, man. I just thought they were, just it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
But
who handled you at meets?
believe it or not, Tom, when he was able to, when we weren't lifting at the same time, and Bob Coe helped me out quite a bit.
Yeah.
But I'd say the for the most part, Tom, he was the best handler you could ever have, man, and best motivator. Also, too, when I trained with Mickey Tate, Mickey was he was something else, man. He really knew how to get me going, and great person to train with too. We had of course, one of the people I've been kicked out of Westside several times. One of the times I ended up training at a Columbus Sports Connection, where I found the infamous Matt Smith. But Matt, that's where I met Matt. I had met Rob Fusner, and me, Mickey, Rob Fusner, and even George. We all trained at the Columbus Sports Connection. We would do our Sunday thing, and Louis kind of allowed that, man. He kind of let us do our thing, and man, we all soared. Our benches just took off through the roof. I think at the time, Mickey did a 650. He was 40. It was a Masters world record. George was on his way to being the bench god that he was, and Rob ended up, doing the things that he did. It was a great group to have. Very intense. That's actually where I met Mark Coleman and Kevin Randleman.
Yeah.
And later on, I had introduced Mark to Louis. As another story in itself. But
is that how Randleman ended up coming training at the gym?
Yes.
Oh wow, I didn't know that.
So
can you talk about that aspect, how that happened?
Well, when I originally had met Mark, and they were training in there, so we got to know them and whatnot. And there was a guy that Kevin went to high school with. His name was Jason Lizzie, and he played football at Capital University. I guess he real talented. He was trying to get into the league. Kevin had heard about Louis, had heard about Westside, and asked if I could, take him down to Westside. And of course, Louis, helped. He wanted to meet, Kevin, and I had brought the two of them down there and introduced him to Louis. Shortly, about a month after that, Jason Lizzie was murdered. He was murdered on the east side of Columbus. Teenage kid shot and killed him. Being in the wrong place at the wrong time, I guess, is what I was told. But that's how I had first introduced Kevin Randleman to Louis Simmons, man. And the Mark Coleman, I remember Louis had asked if I could, if I told Mark that Louis wanted to meet him, and we ended up showing up to Mark's apartment. He lived over off of Henderson Road, which wasn't too far from me. And I'll never forget, it was probably about 10 o'clock in the morning, and me and Louis knocked at the door and looked like we had just woke him up. He knew I was coming, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wouldn't have shown up. But it was just kind of short, real short. And, Louis talked to him and whatnot. He was a very intense individual, man. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Just he just looked like he was ready to go. And for me and Louis, you can tell Louis felt on edge too. Like, man, we better not say anything to upset him. He seemed grumpy. Yeah, he seemed like he was grouchy that morning. So I don't think anything really ever took off from there. It's like, he just,
Yeah, when we talked to Mark said, hell no, I don't want to work out. He said if he came to Westside, there was no way he would get away with doing what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
That you'd have to work out hard.
So, that was that.
How many? You introduced Tony Ramos here too, right?
Yes, I sure did.
Who else? How many people did you bring in and bring out?
I know there was Matt. There was Rob Fusner. Tony, which brought Paul Keys. Paul
Yeah.
was a super talented bench presser, super strong. God, who else? I'm sure there's others. I would bring random people all the time I'd meet. I'll never forget that. So the story about Matt, bringing Matt to Westside. I know he's gonna hate me for this, but so I bring Matt down to meet Louie, and I'll never forget. Louie goes, "Jerry, you can't bring guys like that down here." And I'm like, "Oh man." He's like, "You can't bring him back." Blah blah blah. So I go to jail. I get arrested like shortly after that, and I get locked up for like 6 months. I get out and I come, and next thing you know, I'm like, Louis said, "Yeah." He said he didn't have the heart to tell him not to come back. He said he kept showing up, and he goes, "Man," he goes, "I think he was right." He said, "You know, I'll say something about him, man. He works hard. He shows up. He doesn't." Matt's very much a team player, man.
Yeah.
Just phenomenal training partner, and I think Louis. I'm glad Louis gave him a chance, man. Because imagine all the things that he accomplished and what he contributed to Westside. But another kid, I can think it was Christian Haywood. I remember calling Louis and telling him about Christian, and Louis like, we don't want him. Next thing you know, he started doing some phenomenal things, and
Still on the board for deadlift.
Yeah, and then I think he broke Jeff Corpenny's, I think it was a 40-year-old
record
deadlift record, the 750, and he did 755. Man, I told Louis, it's like, man, I don't know what it is, man. I always felt like I was one of those people. I can tell, I could spot talent, but I told Louis, and this kid is phenomenal. I've never seen anything like it. I brought a couple other guys that they just never kind of.
Yeah.
They didn't really want to power lift, but they were great big guys and strong and athletic. Just kind of but I always kind of felt that's what we're supposed to do, man.
Yeah.
We're supposed to pay it forward, you know.
What was the back in the gym, what was the atmosphere like when you guys trained?
Intense. One thing that I've never experienced since that time is the intensity that we had, and just being able to motivate each other. Now I feel like everywhere I go, any gym I go to, like I don't see the same like we really got after each other. We really pushed each other. Today it just seems like everybody's for themselves, man. It's just It's very how can I make myself better? I felt during my time we all tried to make the gym better. We try to make each other better.
Yeah.
You know, what good does it do if I'm doing it, if I'm breaking all the records, or if I'm the one that's making gains, you know? So just even me and Louie, man, one of the last conversations we had, you know, so hard to explain, man, but just walking into not having, you know, like today, walking in the room, like go to gyms, I see people with everybody's like recording every freaking their sets and got the little their cameras up and this and that and social media, and everybody's talking, you know. It's like back then, man, it's like we showed up, the intensity and the unmatched, man, like came to work, came to get it done.
Who held that standard? Who held did the standard come from? Louis of intensity,
Chuck.
Or was it Chuck?
Yeah. Say another one of the most, George Halbert, man. George was probably one of the greatest training partners I ever had. Him, Mickey, of course, Tom, man. Just people that could really make you, and even Louis, man. Louis knew how to get things going, man. It's like almost like you feel like a scientist. Like he knew how to get things going, man.
Yeah.
And get under people's skin, get the little rivalries going. And I'll tell you what, man, that's what made Westside what it is. That formula was a formula for success. And Jimmy, like even say Jimmy Ritchie, I can remember another thing. Me and Louie were talking about, you know, training out of Van Horns on Sunday. Got 3 benches and freaking, I mean, how cool was that? You got the top guys in the middle. You got the kind of runner-ups on the second bench, and then you got the tweeds, Louis called on the third. But shit, you know, if you wanted to take somebody if I wanted to, knock you off that day, I could call you out and we could get it on right there. And man, I thought that was just super cool, man.
Yeah.
And it always turned into a lot of competition and a lot of egos being checked at the door, man. That was cool. That was super cool. I've never, like I said, once again, I've never experienced anything like that. And I've never been around a group of guys like that. Like, just,
what are some of your funnest stories that you can say from the gym?
funnest stories. Got so many of them, man. So many. I'm have to sit back and think, man. I just got so many. They were all fun to me. Every moment at that gym was.
Was there anything that from Louis' aspect, that you couldn't believe he did, or that many people wouldn't expect Louis to do? Any stories like that?
Oh my God, countless stories. He just, especially when he was younger, man. He was definitely he was nonstop, man. He was always going, and man, he would outwork anybody, man. It's like, I remember if I'd come in the gym complaining about something, man, he knew, like, he wasn't having it,
Yeah.
He just was a master motivator, man. He knew how to play. He knew how to play everybody and play into it, and he knew how to get people going, and he definitely knew how to get the most out of his lifters, man. And I loved lifting against him. I can remember I came back and him calling me out. I came in the morning and I'd been gone for a while, and oh God, Louis started talking shit to me, and next thing you know, we're in a safety bar squat competition, man. And I almost broke my neck that day. I ended up trying to keep up with him, man. He knew too. He knew I was out of shape and whatnot, but he kept getting me, and that's what I mean. Like, I wouldn't stop. I just kept trying to keep up with him, and ended up almost breaking my neck. But stories like that, man, I just got so many of them. Just that being there in the mornings, and a lot of great memories, man.
Did you go to breakfast? Did you go eat food with him? Did you do stuff like that?
So when I first started, we had a nice little group that we usually meet on Sundays before we out of Stringtown Red. We go to TJ's,
Yeah.
and oh God, I'll never forget the story. I remember sitting at when I first started. You remember they had the spray, the Stickum spray?
Yeah.
So Matt told me we're at the gym and we're all sitting there, and Matt's like, he's looking at Louis, he's telling him how he has this big knot in his hair and he doesn't know how the hell he got it. Well, freaking Matt handed me the Stickum spray. I started spraying in his freaking hair. I didn't know what it was. And I'm sitting here like, oh my God. And I had told Louis what I did. And Louis was laughing his ass off. But just, I think around after that time, man, how me and Louis became pretty close. It was just me and Louis for a few years. It was just me and him. We would meet over at Bob Evans on Georgesville Square. And that's how I think I really got to know him. And
what would you talk about? Training, or was it just
live training? And he knew I was going through a lot of things with my addiction and whatnot. And yeah, got to know each other, man.
Yeah.
And that's where our bond formed, or our friendship.
How do you think, knowing everyone who's been in the gym, that everyone had that respect for Lou? What did Lou do for everyone or for the gym that made people immediately have this respect for him?
I'll say personally, anything I ever asked for, anything I needed, if I remember when I went to prison, Louis brought me, he put money on my books. He had brought me magazines. When I got out of prison, he made sure he helped me get a car. Just had a very, I think people knew they could turn to him.
Yeah.
I think that Louis, outside in the gym, he was one way, but outside of the gym, if you called him, there was nothing he wouldn't do for you. especially if he liked you,
Yeah.
if you're on his good side and his good graces. I know he always had a soft spot for me. So,
How many times did you get kicked out?
oh my God, at least three.
For what? What did you do?
Not showing up. Um, my God, I'm trying to think what the other time. Another time I can't speak of on, but he'd always take me right back.
Yeah.
He just knew. He knew I think that was his way of showing me tough love.
Yeah.
Especially. I think when I came home from prison, when I went to prison in 2006, and probably from from 2002 to 2006, I just kind of disappeared. I was out of the scene. That's kind of when the new age,
Yeah.
the Matt Wenning showed up, the Greg Penoras. I didn't really ever. I was before their time, and then I come after, and I was so. I guess I'm gonna say. I want to say almost like having a time machine. I feel like I was Back to the Future.
Yeah.
Like, and all of a sudden I show up in the present, and the sport had changed so much. The equipment,
Was the culture different? Was the gym different? The atmosphere?
much different. I don't want to call them outsiders, but it kind of feels like it felt different. Meaning, when you started bringing people from all over, I felt like it just changed you kind of understand where I'm going.
To where they didn't grow up in the environment, so you have people kind of transplant in.
Yeah.
It seems to be a common thing that there was a changing of culture, and that when people grew up getting stronger, you didn't just get stronger in strength; you got stronger as a group.
Like, we're from here. This
Yeah.
is we grew up here. This kind of felt it changed. When you had people coming from other places or whatnot, but it definitely stepped up the level of competition too.
Yeah.
I mean, God, man, the gym, like, just thinking of all the guys, Panora, all the guys that he had that were strong, man. It was, man, it worked, right?
Yeah, it worked, but it was all built upon the foundations of all the previous groups.
Right.
Because there seems to be a pattern of the newer age people, and there's exceptions where they're there for 3 years. Usually 3 years they're gone. It didn't last because the culture here was pretty hard, and it seems you could put people into two categories. One was, what can I do for Westside Barbell, which seems to be all your guys' group and generations. Then there was these other people, and they're more individual, but what can Westside do for me?
What can Westside do for me?
And those are the people that rotated in, rotated out. And regardless if they were strong or not, didn't necessarily mean that they were Westside.
It amazed me. That amazes me too. Even just, no matter what I've been, I'm so glad that I want to say loyalty, but man, even till, I had called Louis, like Louis had passed actually on my birthday, on the day before. He had passed on the 24th. My birthday is the 25th, but I always stayed in touch with him, no matter what. I don't care what could have went wrong or what could have been said. I always checked, always called him, always. Man, same with me, and like my relationship with Tom and my relationship with Tony. Right?
Yeah,
It's just to feel this my undying loyalty. Like I owe it.
yeah.
They're part of my family. This was my family. This was a huge part of my life. That's what I think I see different now. That maybe the loyalty isn't there. I don't see that same type of loyalty. People just can say, how the hell? A few people, I'm not going to mention names, they can say, they haven't talked to Louis. How could you go without talking to Louis for years? Like, I don't get that. Or that'd be like not talking to my mother or father, like, or like, just I don't get that. I don't get it. He meant so much to me that, and he should have meant so much to everybody, to the people that came through these doors. That regardless of your differences, man, like I said,
He was an easy guy to find too.
yeah.
He didn't really. Yeah. There was like 3 or 4 places he'd be, and that'd be it.
Oh, he'd always call. Yeah, man. I'm so thankful that I was able to go to breakfast this last couple years and
Yeah.
get to see him when I could. And sure, I drove him crazy, call his house, and but I always just wanted to call, man. I just felt that that's what I needed to do.
When what was the biggest lift you achieved?
I finally squatted 900. I did a 900 squat, and I benched 705, and I pulled 810. 810 was my So 275 when I benched the. I was 275 when I benched the 705. Squatted 900. I think I was 308. I think I also did pull 804 at 275. I did that when I was fairly young. So,
is there? I know you got lots of stories to choose from, but can you give us a couple examples of some of the most unbelievable things you saw in the gym in terms of strength? Did you ever see anyone do like, I cannot believe that person lifted that weight or did that exercise?
of course, Chuck. Watching Chuck. Lift. George Albert. I mean, he was always. Man, I was always so amazed watching him train.
What made him so like? What made George? Because like he's the one of the best, if not the best bench presser to come out of here.
I feel he's the greatest bench presser. I've in history, man. He just, I don't know. He was just. I've never seen somebody so driven, so focused. Like he just showed up for business, man. And he was just. He was the one. He was one of the guys, man. When he came to the gym, he was all business. He was able to leave his personal life at the door, and just he was always. And I'll tell you, man, he was just he. Say one thing about him too. He always stayed a student of the game.
Mm-hmm.
He was always trying to kind of like Louis, right? Always trying to figure out a way to get stronger. Always, even though he might have just broke his 10th all-time world record, he was still going back to the drawing boards, trying to figure out how he can get better.
Yeah.
And I think that's what separated him from most. He loved it. He had a passion for it.
Was there any lifts he did that you tried to do and you couldn't do? Was there any?
I think one time I might have challenged him to a rep competition with 405 when I first met him, and of course he kicked my ass. Like I knew after that not to, to not go barking up that tree anymore. He just, man, just very, very blessed that I was able to train with him. I saw what Tom did when I first started. Did a lot, man. Just so strong, man. Super. I think about what he would have been able to do with the equipment. Just seeing him pull over 800 pounds in the rack and super 900 pound good mornings back then. I got to see Matt. I got to watch him train, and he did some phenomenal things in the gym. I think the craziest thing I ever saw, I'll never forget, going back to Paul Keys, who I met through Tony. I'll never forget, I saw him do, no lie, Louis was there, that was on Sunday, he did 455 for 20 reps. He did 455 20 times. That's
ridiculous.
That was pretty crazy, right?
Yeah.
So, but I thought that was probably one of the most, like, how in the hell? Can you imagine that? Like still to this day,
yeah.
I think I started, and I think I had to follow after him too, because I'd always try. That was my thing. I'd call everybody out, rep contest at the end, and shit, he did 20, and I think I got to like 6 or 7. I'm like, man, you won. I'm good. So,
what's one of the most things you're most proud of, being a Westsider?
The relationships that I was able to form, getting to meet Chuck, getting to meet Tommy, having the friendship I've had with him, Tony, George, just the friendships that all carried them. The memories. I say the memories. Yeah. Bob Coe, all the guys that means the most to me. And my relationship with Louis is I don't, I don't care. I don't care about all the records and this. I'm just glad. I just feel very blessed that I had a chance to train here and got to train with the people that I got to train with, and just man, it's very it's priceless, man, priceless. And,
Before we wrap up this, because I know we're going to get another one with you and Tom Waddle on, so that should be a blast. But is there anything that you want to get out there or to tell people that they might know about Louis that you think is something that they should know?
just what I mean, I guess I don't know. I think a lot of this what a caring. He was a really caring person, man. He could come across sometimes. He could come across. I've seen how he if he didn't really know you or whatnot, he didn't have a big high tolerance for people, especially if they felt like they knew what they knew what they were talking about. But just what a good person, but what a good soft-hearted person he was, man. It was a little easier when you got him on his own.
Yeah.
That was just he was a little different when you had a crowd, but he just when you got him on his own, what a good person he was, man. But just funny person too.
Yeah.
Just he had a real sense of humor, man. So probably that.
Jerry, thank you and look forward to the next one.
Yeah, thank you so much.